I hear little mic noises. That must be Colleen Bertino coming in
over here?
coming in for a landing. How are you, Colleen?
Doing damn good. Like I have my coffee. Okay, I put it in my left arm because I think I screwed up my right arm because I am the queen of the invisible injury.
You have been on a roll lately with stuff.
Actually, I think it was a roll of quarters, or actually probably like 20 rolls of quarters that screwed up my, I went to the bank, I got change. I've done this a zillion times, but now I'm old. So I went to pick up the bag of change and I just felt this sort of little pop. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
And it's been bugging me ever since. And I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh well. What the hell?
Well,
life goes on.
Yeah. Megan Vaughn is in the house. Hey.
Hello. Hope you're not sick of me yet.
Oh, no.
Keep showing up.
And no, it's awesome to have you here. I'm Kelly Guest, and we have in studio today special guest. I don't even know because she's so multifaceted. I'm going to call her blogger extraordinaire, activist, and everything else. Gr8 Lopez Donovan, welcome to you.
Thank you.
Now, how many writing projects do you have sort of out there right now?
Oh, God, I don't even know at this point. So there's Twin Cities Geeks. I also have my personal blog, and now I'm doing NaNoWriMo, which is kind of insane and ridiculous, but...
Okay.
At least 3 big ones at the moment.
Okay, and you have a day job or a night job?
I do, yeah.
Okay, what do you do if you don't mind us asking?
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm a mental health advocate at a insurance company. So basically, it's a fancy way of saying I'm customer service, but I help people figure out their insurance.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that's funny that you say that because... Colleen and I have both been kind of on a roll lately. I got stung by a hornet, and I wasn't allergic until I was. Ooh. And so it was a big emergency room hoo-ha and all this kind of stuff. And I was, you get bills from 19 different places, and I have insurance. And I called mine, and I got this really cool. You remind me of her actually.
Awesome.
And I'm like, I don't get this. And she's like, oh, you know what? Before I got my job here, she was just fabulous. So you know what? You do make a difference. I'm telling you right now. It helped my mental health.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say. So the Great Northern Sexcast today, Megan, why don't you tell us a little bit how you became aware of Gr8 and why we thought she was fabulous and wanted to bring her in?
Actually, it was from a Facebook group, Twin Cities Geek, that I am a member of, that talks about all things geeky in the Twin Cities. And actually, you had posted, I think, a blog about asexuality, and I was like, oh, hey, we talk about that stuff. Let's hook up.
Yeah.
In a not creepy way.
Right.
It sounds a little weird, but yeah, through the magic of Facebook and geekdom.
Okay. A match met in heaven, right? Geekdom and Facebook. So we're going to go through our news segment because Over Caffeinated is your personal blog, right?
It is, yes.
Okay, which fits this room pretty well, I would say. And by the way, somebody accidentally said, do you want a piece of gum? Yeah, that'd be great. It was nicotine gum. I'm a non-smoker.
Oh, no.
I'm like, whoa. Okay. And I'm like, what is that stuff? And I'm like, hey, the back of my throat, it feels like stuff's crawling around in there. And they're like, oops. Have any of you guys ever had that stuff?
No. And you know what? I don't think I will either. No,
Yeah.
I don't. Thank you for being the guinea pig. Some things, I don't. If someone tells me the stove is hot, I don't need to touch it. I'm perfectly willing to take other people's knowledge and experience.
Yep.
And do it.
I will take your word on that.
Right? I'm just saying, if you're not used to that stuff, you need a seatbelt.
Yeah, I was going to say I am a smoker, so I don't think it would be quite as exciting, unfortunately.
Well, and I'm walking around, and I was talking really fast, and I'm like, and I talk fast anyway, even when I'm not like that. So yeah, it was pretty funny. So yeah, we're gonna. I can't even remember. So Over Caffeinated, I was reading your a lot of your stuff, and so you'll fit right into the news story. And again, because you also comment on a lot of LGBTQ. Did I get them all?
You did.
Okay, letters in there. So I wanted to start out the news today with there's another gay gene story coming out, study/story hitting the news. This one comes from the...
Okay, you should talk in Gene, not Jene. It's not
Correct.
like Levi's has come out with.
Right. That's right. And so, so this is out of the David Geffen Medical Center out of UCLA. And I forgot to mute my phone.
Hello?
And so anyway, and this is a very small focus group, so it's getting sort of panned at the moment. because this study relies on something that they call epigenetics. And it harkens back to the pairing that this story came up with was a 1993 study that first really suggested in a big way that there might be some genetic disposition towards homosexuality. And this one, that one, I should say, rather, was done by the National Institutes of Health. And it's controversial, and they're still trying to find different paths to research. But this one is coming out into the news today, and expect to be hearing more about it as it starts to make the mainstream media. So that said, one of the things that I found when I was poking around trying to figure out what else would go along with this, I wanted to see what the room thought. Gallup poll, the big polling thing, they said that about 3.8% of the U.S. adult population identifies as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. What do you got? Does that seem like too few, about right, or what?
That, to me, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, these are just the people who are aware of their sexuality and comfortable speaking out about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people, they're not even going to answer that question.
Right.
And two, you have to look at how folks are doing polls now. Because if you're doing a poll by phone, you're going to miss a large selection of folks now that are just unplugged. I mean, they don't have a landline, and a lot of these companies are still working off of landlines. If you were to do this off of a text, stuff like that, or if this is broken down by age, but altogether, I know certainly more than 3% of the people I know, would choose a non traditional label. Let's just,
Right.
Yeah.
The number I always hear in the past, especially during the big debates with the marriage amendment and such, was 10%.
That seems
Same
more.
here.
Yeah, so the 3.8 seems really low.
Well, and remember a couple weeks back, we talked about that survey out of the UK where high 40% of young people under 30 they said that they did not exclusively identify as a heterosexual. Almost half. So there has to be, some disparity. So the fact that they're trying to chase down the gene pool again, and yet nobody's gay, supposedly, I'm like, what does this mean to the room? I'm just curious.
Right. And it's interesting, too, because a lot of these polls use very decisive language, like you're either this, or this, and there's no spectrum identified, and you're completely losing the aspect of, well, there's attraction, and then there's sexuality, and then there's the romantic aspect. So there are multiple components that aren't really being included in these polls.
Sure. I would agree with that too. Because I did get a cell call from one of the big major polling houses recently. It was on an issue related thing. It wasn't presidential related, thank God. But I was surprised that they found me on my cell phone. And they were super polite, and they asked if it was okay, and would I be willing? I mean, they were super thrilled that I picked it up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I generally still have a landline, although I have to go play hostage for it because it's not working. But I like to have the backup if something goes down or power goes down. You've got a line, unless of course the big tree lands on it. But yeah, I'm old. I keep saying it. So I like having that insurance. Maybe if I didn't have a kid, I just want to be able to have something that's really, really stuck to a 911. So I'm thinking I'm betting that the majority of folks that they got on the phone, weren't even aware that they had a choice.
Yeah.
And if you don't stop it, we're going to start calling it GLBTQO because you identify as old. And I think you're preposterous. You're not old, so just stop it. Okay, next up, this one slays me. And Megan, I don't know if you saw the feed I sent you this morning of everything that we're going to be talking about. If you might have seen the picture for the next story about the wine commercial that got banned in Great Britain.
Oh, no, I missed.
Oh,
Wait a minute. What the hell could possibly get banned in Great Britain? I mean,
aside from sunshine.
Right? And good food and dental care.
No, it's been
spices.
Yeah.
Oh no, their food seems pretty damn good. But the I just find it fascinating that that's where you get some of the greatest commercials. I mean, the Walker does a British commercial retrospective every year that sells out because they're so to the point.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, and most of them. Okay, so sorry.
No.
I'm startled by the idea that something could be banned
in Great Britain.
In Great Britain.
So it's an Australian winery, and it's Premier Vineyards, and the slogan is "Taste the Bush." Okay, so the camera shot is this very nicely put together woman in a dark white dress, and it's form-fitting, and she's standing behind a table, which in front of her is a traditional red glass wine, which is the big whatever with red wine in it. So it looks like the way the glass is shaped, it's shaped like a right there. And so it's like you're looking at her and your eyes go immediately to it, and she's you got to watch the commercial. I sent you the link. We'll put it on our Great Northern Sexcast Facebook page because it's hysterical. And she's going, you can almost taste the bush. And then she finally walks. It's hilarious. It's like, how can you not think that's funny?
It's sort of like I think was it Gillette or someone that had a commercial for their razors.
Yes.
And they had three women in bikinis with a scissor and doing a topiary.
Yes.
And people were, and I'm just like, it was online. I'm not sure,
It's not on TV.
And that's where I've seen it now. And I know that it's been on, TV. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, it got people talking about it.
No matter what, this vineyard is a winner.
Yeah.
It's online.
Yeah.
It's online.
That is brilliant.
Yeah. But you guys, it's funny. I mean, I even thought it was funny. I'm sure that there's a lot of women out there, I don't care what your orientation is, that would get all, whooped up about that being somehow crude or sexist. But I thought it was flat hilarious. And I mean, well done you.
So did they take it off the air because it was, because they said it was sexist, or did they take it off? Yeah. I mean, what was the
inappropriate, too racy. Too racy. Bush is too racy. And the writer, who also I thought was hysterical, it said, this slogan can't be any worse than Jeb can fix it.
Well, what I was fascinated is, I know that they have some rules in Great Britain that says that if a photograph is too photoshopped, they can't use it. You cannot, just outright lie that this under eye makeup is going to make your wrinkles disappear by airbrushing them out. They have banned a lot of ads that way. But I'm trying to think, did they airbrush out the crotch wrinkles? That would be that would only be the reason I could think of.
Well, maybe it doesn't actually taste like bush, so they're like false advertising.
Oh, there you go.
This neither tastes like the Australian outback or a vagina.
Yeah.
It tastes like wine. So this commercial is a lie. That's all I can think of.
You're reliable, Megan. I can always count on you. I like it. Yeah, no, they have some really strange rules, but we'll put the link up so you can watch it. It's very funny. Colleen, you found this one. Did you read the story about going down on women is good for your health?
I have to admit, I just sort of stopped at the headline.
Thank God it's proven.
Yeah, I said here's some nice. I'm thinking once again, I said, well, this is just awfully pleasant to know. It's good for everyone's health.
And a nice counterbalance to all the semen is good for your skin or whatever studies that they're putting out there.
Well, and this does come on the heels of a State University of New York study that did suggest that blowjobs were good for your health, and all the men across the nation were cheering. But this one it took 150 straight and lesbian couples, 75 of which were told to concentrate heavily on oral sex, and 75 not to. And the results showed a notable difference in stress and anxiety levels between those who concentrated on oral sex versus those who did not. And they summed it up by basically saying, look, it's got, it helps with the oxytocin release and endorphins and all of those other different things. And that's probably a lot of it. But
were they having other forms of sex?
They just said to concentrate on oral and the other ones to do other things. So yes.
Okay, so they were still orgasming, so it's not necessarily one orgasm versus
I don't know if
another is.
And this one, by the way, claims that it can reduce migraines.
I have both cured and caused migraines with oral sex. So I have some unscientific. Yes,
you're a bad control group, Megan.
I am.
Bad.
You'll skew everybody's data.
Right. You gotta have a skew here and there. Otherwise, it's just,
Oh, we're skewed. This show is definitely skewed. There's no question about that. Well, so I'm going to bring you to an immediate buzzkill following that we're all excited about. According to the World Health Organization, 2/3 of the world's population has herpes. Woo!
That just makes no one, you lose that, lovely little thing when you're at the doctor's now and you're talking about stuff and nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know there are two types, so I'm assuming they're lumping everything together.
They do break it down a little bit, but they are talking about the fact that this is just proliferated, and it's gotten the numbers have grown exponentially since 2012, and they said that it's so common, but they can transfer. And so it goes through this whole very boring scientific thing. If you really do, if you suffer from cold sores, which I'll own the fact that I get them periodically. First bad one I was 16, and it happened on the day, I swear to God, that they were coming to health/sex ed class in high school to talk to us about STDs. No. And I've got this big hankin' thing on my face, and I'm just sitting in the back going, just kill me now.
Bring her up to the front of the class. So this is an example.
Vanna White me. Yeah.
No, it is, one, it could, because I know a lot of times we talk about labels, is the fact that if it's that common, possibly people will just be less freaked out about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you also have to realize that it's yet another piece of the conversation when you're meeting someone.
Yeah.
It's going through there.
Yeah. Because
if you do have open sores, whether it's your mouth or your genitals, you can transfer other viruses. And that's where you need to pay attention to what's going on when you're talking, when you're talking about using, even if you're in a monogamous relationship, using a condom during those times.
Yeah.
And other things, or using a dental dam, doing something so that you're not, keeping a barrier between you and that.
So are you kind of saying it like forces us to communicate in that sense?
Oh yeah,
imagine that.
I noticed that I was, like I said, I was reading through a couple blogs, and you're talking about just more about no matter what, it keeps coming down to communication.
Right.
When you're talking to folks.
I think we boil it down to that around here quite often as well. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty common. But I just have to say before we leave the herpes conversation that on the very bottom of this article, which I said it's pretty lengthy and technical and whatnot, but it's that at least one scientific study done in all of this suggests that humans initially caught herpes viruses from chimpanzees. So I've heard this before with regard to another pretty wicked virus, and it's like, what are we doing to monkeys? Or do we want to know? I don't know.
No, they are close by, and folks, and they're a source of food. So if you're going to be near another animal, I mean, you can pick up a lot of things from your dogs and cats, and almost everything. There isn't too much that we don't share with the rest of the animal kingdom out there.
Oh yeah.
So,
I'll own that one.
Except, although we generally tend to, not throw shit at people when we're older. But other than, generally.
There's been a couple of really, really wicked fights where it's crossed my mind. I didn't do it. I didn't pull the trigger. So, Colleen, this one's for you. I'm noting this on your outline as embrace the cringe.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're coming out, North Carolina State University, saying, we just came up with a study and lots of interesting statistics on kids and sex right now. We can talk about this in a second. But basically, the kids whose parents had the talk, no matter how uncomfortable it was about STDs and being careful, fared better. Didn't necessarily stop them from having sex, but they had fewer instances of unplanned pregnancy and young age contracted STDs. Thoughts?
So education is good? Is this what we get out of this? Yeah, it's, I've been, which is, the exact opposite of, the schools that have cut all of their sex education have had massive chlamydia outbreaks, a whole bunch of other, stuff. If you have information, you can make better choices. Mm-hmm. You may not, but at least you have the information. I'm not, it's not the end all to be all. There's a lot of information out there that people willfully ignore in this world.
I know a lot of high power executives that make the dumbest personal life choices I've ever seen. So
it's just, but you need to at least have it out there. You cannot tell someone's not going.
Amen.
Yeah.
And it's nice if it's not in schools that, with the internet now, even we talked about the Scarlet Teen website, and there's bloggers like you that are working to help educate people who might not be finding it in schools or more traditional education settings.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I got to tell you this gal's title, though. This is really interesting. And by the way, this was a compilation analysis of 30 years of data from 52 different studies that they went back and parsed through. And she had her team of doctoral students working on it with her. But her name is Laura Widman, and she is. It says she does research on the language around negotiating sex. And I just would love to know, because in a university setting, who came up with that job title? It's like, how did she get there? I mean, I'm fascinated by that. Aren't you a little bit?
Wait, her title is the language?
Well, she's a PhD, but her research centers on the language around negotiating sex.
That's beautiful, I think.
Yeah. I mean, because it implies that there is, once again, conversation. It implies that that there that two people are equally involved in what's going on, or three people. I mean, I'm not gonna whatever you want to do, but that everyone has has a voice.
Yeah.
Because it is it's probably always been a negotiation. But to have it be an equal negotiation is what folks are going towards.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and even just the word negotiation to me kind of brings to mind, like, oh, this isn't just an end-all be-all right now. It's ongoing.
Sure.
Yeah. You don't change what was, good one night or one day or in one relationship is not the same that's going to happen with another person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a good point, especially when you look at, there was another headline this morning, 1 in 4 female college students says that she's been sexually assaulted in some way. It doesn't sound like there was much negotiation there.
Was it 1 in 4 or 1 in 5? I say that because Megan found a spectacular, yes, it was on the Funny or Die website, but it is a spoof of the bullshit that people say when, like, boys will be boys, stuff like that.
Yeah. Instead
of saying saying, well, 1 in 5 people will be sexually, women will be sexually assaulted, and men are in there too. So, I'm not sure what the numbers are in that. But what if 1 in 5 people were eaten by bears? You would do something about the bears. You would not just say the bear will be the bear. It's Rob Riggle is part of it. Another actor. We'll link it to the site. I thought it was a fascinating piece, which is also similar to talking about the tea analogy. And I know a lot of us have read about that, where someone, if they want tea, that's fine, but if they pass out, you don't shove the tea down their throat. So the consent and just the idea that once again that everyone takes a part in what's going on out there, and it's not just about about the women who are sexually assaulted. It's about the men who are sexually assaulted, and about the men who are afraid to speak up when other people are saying things. That it's everyone needs to say, no, that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that particular video is really targeting the kind of bro culture where, your friend might say something or do something and you are like, oh, that's my bro, I'm not going to call him out. But, if your friend had a rabid bear in his closet that was trying to bust in and kill all you, you'd say something to him.
Yeah. Right.
And I just hope, one day we can get to the point where we can have conversations where we don't need bear or tea analogies, but at least they're starting things in the right direction.
For sure. No, good point. Good point. This should be disturbing, regardless of what orientation. This was out of Philadelphia yesterday. A couple found dead in the act of having sex in an SUV in a park. And, she was 32, he was 25. They're both in relationships with other people. This has been going on for a long time. Police believe this was a crime of passion. 9 shots to the heads. Oh
my God.
Yeah, right there in Philadelphia. So I don't care who you're in there with. If you're cheating, the chances of getting shot seem to be getting bigger, because I'm finding these way more often than, people should be therapy, not guns. I'm just saying.
No, the fact that folks feel that that shooting someone is an option is just something that is just frustrating. And I certainly don't have the knowledge to figure out what's going through that. And I'm also, frustrated over the fact that it just, you run across this stuff and it's barely a headline anymore. This one would makes a headline because they were actually in a van in a park having sex. But the amount of folks that are probably being murdered right now, that's not ever going to make the headlines because it's going to be in a home, or it's going to, or someplace where it's just another person who's been
It's almost
assaulted.
like we consider it normal, which is just disturbing on so many levels.
It is. Well, and Colleen makes such a good point, and we have a story like this at least every other week. But I mean, if it's domestic violence, it gets ignored. But if there's some sort of sensationalism surrounding it, like dosextic violence, which is what I was kind of dubbing this morning at 5:45 before the coffee was done. And I mean, it is. I mean, this is making a bigger news, but it's like, okay, these guys were obviously cheating on their partners for an extended period of time. They were hiding out, doing what they're doing, and I'm not excusing the shooter by any stretch of the imagination, but hello, not a good way to handle things.
Right.
On your end either, not to mention put yourself in potential mortal danger.
There was no communication or negotiation.
Oh,
Anywhere.
tie a bow on it, Meg. Colleen, the clothing optional parties up on the Iron Range.
I know that's made quite a bit. I don't know who saw it here. Recently, the town of Virginia, Minnesota, was just sort of fascinating that there was a group up there that would rent out an entire hotel, and that's where they would have clothing optional, and or as the people don't like them, the sex parties, because I'm sure it was probably whispered. And they brought it up to the city council, who pretty much said, well, it's private property and it's a private party and it's no one's business. And then they had to bring up what if someone's assaulted? Well, someone could be assaulted in the Target parking lot. You're not going to make the Target go away.
Yeah.
And it is always fascinating that people think that other people don't have sex, or if other people don't have sex the way they have sex, that there's something particularly wrong with it. And it was let's see, of course, it was a reverend who wasn't particularly thrilled about what was going on. And they, it was really fascinating that, oh geez, let me see, I have the article here that was going through there.
Yeah.
My favorite part always is where they went to the city council, and the city council had to try and have a conversation about this.
Did you see the video?
And they're all...
It's so
they're giggling,
uncomfortable.
yeah, and they don't know what to do. And all it reminded me of was the fact that when we were having a hard time in, we had a hard time in several cities, and we've been in court and stuff like that.
For fantasy gifts.
For fantasy gifts. And it was always a hoot because pretty much the judges knew that everything was bullshit. Okay? And they would make the prosecutor say the words dildo. Because if they can't, they would first say, and what sort of items? And yes, and those would be, they would make them
I love that.
say it. And I'd just be sitting there going, okay, don't laugh. Yeah. They would go through there, and it was always fascinating. And then, because I'm like, I couldn't even talk about it. And so they're up in Virginia, like, yes, people have sex. People have sex in a lot of different places. And it's just fascinating that, that this one person thinks that they have any business saying that this one business that someone can't rent out an entire hotel room and have a party.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. The city attorney came back and said, look, there's restrictions in place for sexually oriented businesses, and these are private parties. And so that's how they're getting around it. And the manager of the hotel backed up the customers and saying, we don't discriminate. But this reminds me, there's an interesting comparison to the swinging crowd. We have some very good friends of the show that are very active in the Twin Cities and beyond swinging scene. And they have private parties all the time. But you know why I think they have an easier time, even though it's still considered risque by so many? They're couples usually. And this wasn't necessarily oriented toward couples, which I thought that was another layer of hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's not towards couples. There were people who saying that their partners brought them there. They didn't want to go there. And yeah, that may have happened. But the thing is, those folks would have found another way to intimidate their spouse. It had nothing to do with this particular party.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have, they could do the same thing where, they leave for a week and leave them $20. And then they got to go humiliate themselves by begging their friends for diaper money. I mean, because if someone's going to be abusive to a partner, they're going to find a way to do
Sure.
it. And it has nothing to do with this particular, event.
Yeah.
So when they throw in that, I definitely consider that a red herring. Once again, it's just someone not thrilled that somebody else is having sex that they don't approve of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this story too got me thinking along the lines, and I'm sure that this is, I haven't read all of your stuff, but I'm definitely going to be a follower now, Bree. It's that chip that so many people have, where they want to govern how everybody else's does things according to what they think is appropriate. And it's like even, there's certain things that I'm not into or whatever, but I certainly do not profess to believe that I should be telling them how to do it. You know what I mean? Or that they can't do what they want to just because it's not my thing. You've got to tap into this all the time.
Yeah, pretty much. And to me, it all kind of comes down to like this analogy of I don't like parachute pants. I don't like people wearing parachute pants, but I'm not going to go out and say, hey, you can't wear those because that's offensive to my eyes.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a right to do what they want to do in their private lives as long as it's not affecting you.
Right. It's a golden rule kind of deal. That's the best litmus test that I can think of for just about anything I have never found anything it doesn't work for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's like I may not want to dress in as transgender, but I'd be pissed if you told me I couldn't, It's like, I don't know. So the last one in the news segment today, you guys, this one is another beauty for the Facebook page. eharmingme.com. It's a parody of the eHarmony thing, where toxicity in relationships and partners are best found by exposing your childhood wounds. It's funny. It's funny. It was put together by a comedian, and it's just the still graphic before you hit play is funny. So that's one we're definitely going to have to explore and stuff. So.
I was hoping maybe it was a bondage site.
Me too.
I know. Me, right? That's what I thought it was. I thought it was BDSM. But no, it's just a parody on all the... I'm sorry, but have you guys seen how many... And I don't know if it's the holidays coming up or how many more commercials are all running right now. And eHarmony and Match are like at war. And
I think I'm really glad I gave up cable. I am stuck with the one company I have because it's the only functional internet that I have in my neighborhood. But the phone went away and the cable went away, and I'm watching stuff online, or I'm even considering getting an antenna back to get more of the local stations, because I'm just not spending. Extortion money. It's just, I spend enough time in front of the damn idiot box, as my mom and dad used to call it. I love that.
But if you want a new layer of torture, if you get bored this winter, get satellite and find yourself a whole new things to get frustrated and upset about.
Oh, I'm lucky that won't work. My neighbors have an enormous tree, so half facing south. So I'll be I know that won't
you're
work.
gonna miss out.
Well, I'm having enough frustrations with the world in general. You know what? I'm trying to make some things go away.
Good girl.
Yeah, I don't.
Nice.
Yeah, sort of like the president. I do have a fuck it list, and I am making things go away from it.
I love that. There's the bucket list and the fuck it list, and everyone needs both.
Yes, I don't give it anymore.
I love it.
My fuck it list is just like, Adrian Brody.
Yours sounds a little bit more fun.
Yeah. Well, so I want to go ahead and really kind of put the spotlight over here on Bree Lopez Donovan, and you got to tell your story, where you're from, where you ended up, because I'm also from Southern California, and when I read that first part in your bio, I was like, oh my God.
Awesome. So I am actually from Long Beach, California. I was born and raised there most of my life, but what I consider most of my life right now. My family moved to Pine Island, Minnesota when I was 12, and Pine Island, it's a place that a lot of people don't know about because it's not even on most maps. It's a population of like 2,000. And this is when I was 12, so I was kind of coming of age, kind of like learning more things about myself, and that's when I started to realize, oh, hey, I'm gay, and I'm stuck in this tiny town of 2,000 people. So that was an interesting experience. And then I got older and I moved to the cities for school and also just to get out of Pine Island.
Okay, just without that bombshell that you came to realize within your own world, how was the initial culture shock? How'd that go for you?
It, like I said, interesting is a nice way to put it. So with a population of 2,000 in Minnesota, nonetheless, there were not a lot of people who were not white. Mm-hmm. So I'm like the only Mexican person there. Actually, there was one other person, but I think we had a total of maybe 4 kids who were not white at my school, and this is a graduating class of like 98.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a hell of an experience.
I can imagine. I moved to the Midwest when I was 28 and to a metropolitan area, and I was still like, it took me a year and a half of spin and rotate before I'm like, oh, but I love it now. But it was like so different. So different.
It is, yeah.
When you're looking around and you're not seeing anything that reflects you in a myriad of ways, where do you find the information? I mean, were you spending a lot of time at the library?
This is where the geek part comes in. I was on my computer pretty much every chance I got, going in like debate groups and like different kinds of like youth chat rooms to find other people who had identities that I could connect to, because I wasn't finding that in my social circle, like at school, in the community, even in my family, really. And so yeah, the internet kind of became like a paradise for me in a way, because I not only met people who were like me, but also learned more about myself.
So if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? Because I'm trying to get
Sure.
the read on where we were technologically when this was happening.
Oh, right now you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm actually 24 right now, 25 in February.
So 12 years ago, we had some decent internet, but we didn't have the mobile apps going on like we do now and the texting. But still.
I actually had dial-up at this point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a struggle.
Oh, I bet.
Dial-up AOL chat rooms.
Yep.
Remember that sound? It's like, oh.
It was the
but
best.
there was a lifeline that
There
simply
was.
did not exist even, when 12 years before that. Mm-hmm. Someone who, truly to be isolated, to be able to find that. Like I said, there's a lot of bad crap out there in internet land, but being able to get out and find folks is, it definitely makes up for the shit. Just to put it bluntly, that's
so much.
I think you might have just traded one kind for another, though, in some ways, because I'm from, I did a lot of work and lived near Santa Ana. Mm-hmm. So I am very connected to Mexican culture growing up and a lot of my early professional life as well. And, I didn't see homosexuality come up in the Latino world at all. And looking back, I didn't think about it at the time, but I would, is there a special layer of awkward in that culture?
There really is. There really is. Honestly, so my family's a little bit weird in the sense that my dad is Mexican, my mom is white, and I was raised by my mom.
Okay.
So I'm not super connected to my Mexican half of the family, but we still talk and stuff. There's kind of a point where it's like, I don't know if you guys know that I'm gay and all these other things, but we're just not going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a don't ask, don't tell policy on that side of my family. And from what I've heard from other Latinas and Latinos in the community, that's kind of similar in a lot of families. Mm-hmm. Not always, of course. Like, I don't want to generalize, but that seems like a common thread.
I wonder if it's because of, partially at least, like the very strong Catholic background.
Yeah, and a lot of that goes back to colonization, which is really, that adds a whole interesting layer too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you ever see, Bree, any of the episodes of The Bridge?
I did not, no.
Okay. Oh God, that show went
good.
away. I was crushed. It was just such a fantastic, the actors were brilliant. The story was just hugely tangled and well written and all this kind of stuff. But they had a reporter, an up and coming investigative type reporter character who was still living on the Mexican side of El Paso, on the other side of El Paso, and she was gay. And they sort of touched on her experiences, and she lived with a girlfriend and everything else, and just a little snippet, but I thought that was so fascinating that they worked that in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they really did. And the things that her mother would say to her. And, all that, they just completely, she's like, hi, I'm gay. And she's like, you need a nice man. Mm-hmm. And you're just going, oh my God.
No, although the sense of isolation, I mean, there's been several articles just recently in the city pages and the Star Tribune, stuff like that, about folks coming to Minnesota when they're not, not being born here at all, about what's going on. And, some people embrace it, some people going through there. I know that when my family got here, my parents never felt like they fit in. Because people had been friends for 30 years already, and they didn't need any more.
Yeah.
It is so hard to meet new friends.
And actually, I'm not sure that truly is all that different from a lot of different places. Everyone, I'm sure that we could probably find articles somewhere in Oklahoma City about the same things, about trying to break into some place where people have known each other since kindergarten.
Yeah.
It is very frustrating. So there's so many different layers that you're breaking through. And I mean, like I said, my dad was a Jersey guy and smack in the middle of the Midwest. I mean, it was a completely different concept for him. I mean, because he said what he meant. And so he didn't understand the terms that's interesting. And so if you're coming even at 12, you have the folks that come in have a sense of how, what the words are, what the lingo is, what people are saying, what the subtext is. And you're,
yeah,
but it looks like for almost 13 years now, you're going through there.
One of the things that freaked me out particularly when I got to Minnesota, was that in California, at least the part I came from, nobody was from there. Like, I was an anomaly, having been born and raised around most of the people that I hung out with, whether they were immigrants or whatnot. And here, all these people that had known each other, and they have to avoid dating their cousins in high school and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, what? Did you find that?
It's weird. When I started school in Pine Island, it was weird because everyone had known everyone since kindergarten. And in California, you don't have that. You have the very you start in elementary school, and then you go into middle school, and then you go into high school, and it's all broken up with different schools. In Pine Island, it's all one big school. Wow. It's a K through 12 school, so everyone knows everyone until you graduate.
That's amazing.
And so to come into that middle school, I'm like, hey guys. Oh, okay, you all have friends already. Okay, I'm just going to sit by myself and do my thing. And then when you also don't see anyone who's also Mexican or anyone who's queer, it's even weirder.
Yeah.
So did some of maybe the chat rooms and the stuff you're talking through there, is that where the writing, or did you always write?
I think it really did start with the chat rooms. It actually started with this particular group called News Crew, which was a very youth-oriented debate group, and you debate things like politics and sexuality and science and all these different things. And I kind of learned how to argue in that group. It kind of brought out my stubborn streak, which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But and it's not like I didn't make friends in school. I certainly did. But it's a different kind of friendship when you don't share identities or communities. So I guess in that sense, those online chat rooms really help solidify my sense of community.
I have a completely side question to ask you because, it comes up frequently in business. In fact, I saw a bumper sticker today that completely cracked me up. It said, "My kids think I am AATM." And we joke about the fall of grammar and spelling since all of the, quick electronic exchanges. Did that kind of get you, because you were at that time, especially dial-up, you were typing back and forth. Did that kind of get the writing flow started for you too?
It did. It really did. I feel like I kind of learned how to structure and formulate ideas that way.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's the first shining example, because usually everything you hear about that is bad.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's certainly helpful, especially in education, because as much as they do try to teach you how to critically think in school, you're also kind of put on an assembly line where it's do this assignment, do it the way we tell you to, and then you get a good grade. So
I call that the regurgitation.
Pretty much.
I had to learn, it took me a long time to learn which teachers wanted me to think and which teachers wanted me to regurgitate. Once my brain was able to separate these two, I'm like, fine, I'll do what I need to do in this class. I'll do what I need to do in this class. But when I was trying to think in the regurgitation classes, it
doesn't go well.
It doesn't go well. Because I'm thinking, because I like the idea of the Disney movies and beer.
Awesome.
Because that involves thinking.
It does. It really does.
Because you're going through the blogs, and so when you're going through and because I've attempted to write, and I just find that I ramble on sort of how I speak. Do you start with this little gem of an idea, like I happen to be watching this movie and this beer goes good with it, or I mean, what's the research process?
That particular one actually started with I was venting on Facebook because I was trying to write, but I had epic writer's block, and I was like, I'm not getting anything done. I just want to drink my beer, and I posted that on Facebook, and someone was like, oh, you should just pair beers with Disney movies, and then you kill two birds with one stone. I was like, that's genius. So I credit a lot of my ideas to my friends and people around me.
But you have such a good way of putting everything together. Just the few of your samples that I've read, you had a really interesting piece on marriage equality. And I want you to, can you kind of set that one up for the audience?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, that was a while ago. I believe it was sort of from a place of anger, mostly. It was around the time of the marriage amendment, and a lot of my friends are pretty radical, like way more radical than I am, which is awesome because it does challenge my thinking and it does open me up to new ideas. But at the time, I was just so angry because so many people were like, marriage is a stupid thing to focus on. We shouldn't be talking about this. We have bigger fish to fry. And it was totally legit. We did have bigger issues that we should have been tackling, I think. But at the same time, marriage was an issue that had gained a lot of traction in society. We'd been talking about it so long, it only made sense to see it through. And so for me to hear my friends being like, oh, this is ridiculous and we should be ashamed and this is selfish, it really chapped my ass, for lack of a better term.
I could see that.
Yeah.
And I kind of just went with writing about it because I felt like I couldn't really articulate myself speaking about it because there are so many layers to marriage. It does take a great deal of privilege to be able to access. I mean, you have to have money for even a marriage license. It was like $200 for me to get married.
Did you get married?
I did. I am married.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I did write a little bit about that. And then also the fact that as a Latina, lots of people of color are not really expected in society to get married. That's seen as kind of this ideal for upper middle class white people. And so I always kind of felt like those cards are stacked against me in that way. And I thought, if I can break that ceiling, why wouldn't I? If that's something I want and it works for me, why wouldn't I do that? And why is that a bad thing?
So you're talking about the power of a word or a label to really mean something, and marriage and the word wife and the word spouse. I mean, the legal parts of that were it wasn't just about. I mean, it was everything that goes with it.
Right.
I mean, hospital visitation rights, inheritance rights, children's rights. I mean, when folks were saying, there's other things to go there, and you're talking about all those big things about on a piece of paper. I had friends that were very heavily involved in passing, saying no. In fact, a very good friend finally got his citizenship because he felt that he needed to vote. I mean, he spent a lot of time and effort, but he needed to vote. And so I thought, he became a citizen so he could vote no.
Clearly, it's kind of an important issue.
It is an important issue because it affects, everything about a person's private life. And even though it's a public document, it affects your private life.
Absolutely. And I can understand where a lot of people come from saying, this is heteronormative. Why do we want to be a part of a group that's oppressing us? But at the same time, why can't we change that group? Why can't we change what normal looks like?
Yeah. Make marriage something else, something that works for that community.
It doesn't necessarily have to be straight. It doesn't even have to be monogamous.
Yeah. It is interesting that that people would get upset because there are definitely bigger issues. In particular, I think a lot of like suicide rates and homelessness among youth. But I know one of the reasons I was so passionate was I felt like not passing the amendment we would publicly be saying, you guys are us. You are the same. And I would hope that that positivity could help in some ways filter down, like people would be less depressed because they would feel more welcome, like we can be a part of the larger community as a whole and not ostracized.
Yeah, to not be turned away at a school conference, to not be turned away at the hospital, to not be turned away at the funeral parlor.
Right.
You know, these are and like you said, a lot of those things involve privilege. But I mean, at one point, I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
And that's what
and it shifts people's thinking.
Well, Bree, this might even be the genesis of a blog for you, because we were just talking about, you know, normalizing, you know, different things and whatever. This is a piece from a major, massive financial services company that, you know, wants everybody to prepare for retirement. So you'd think they'd be uber class sensitive and stuffy. But this is a study that they did, and the government is also recognizing these 6 family types that they have. And one of them is, it's traditional families are just one slice now. They've got same-sex couple, they've got blended families, they've got older parent with younger children, multi-generational, all this kind of stuff. And they go through and talk about all the challenges and all the needs, and they surveyed them all. And it is so freaking interesting. But mind you, these people are doing this research and paying attention to these groups for capitalistic purposes, which I'm not going to completely fault them for. But, you know, if some of these companies think that they can make money by being inclusive, they're going to do it. And maybe that's a way capitalism can help. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I think so. I mean, it is certainly, I don't know if I'd call it an evil. No, I'd call it an evil. Capitalism is an evil, but it's an evil we have. We may as well work with it.
Yeah. It's just funny how they back into themselves sometimes. You know what I mean?
They really do.
When you can, pretty much when you can attach it to the almighty dollar is when you get a lot of change in this country. For the most part, when they realize that there's an economic benefit to it. Some folks are, like I said, truly willfully ignorant, and some change is slow.
Right.
But I've noticed that a lot of it happens when it's economically viable. When that's social change or business change or different things going on. Excuse me.
I think that Bree needs to come in once a month and do a segment where, no, I'm serious. I think you need to come in and bring the thing that's chapping your ass and that you've just written about or that's coming out next, and promote the blog and school us up on stuff. I think we should make you a regular.
Call it Bree's Chapped Ass.
Bree's Chapped Ass is on today,
I love
featuring
it.
Bree's Chapped Ass. We've got just a few minutes left, Colleen. I know you were pretty fascinated with the stuff that you saw online.
I was. Well, a lot of times we've been talking a lot of things about labels here, and I was wondering, we seem to have a lot of labels or identification now, where people are trying to figure out where they are, and you were searching for identification when you were younger, and I know people are on there, but and we had a list like 2 weeks ago in which people, where there was there was 8-10 definitions of asexual on this particular list, and Kelly's listing them, and Megan and I are desperately trying to figure out the nuances between them. We could not.
We were exhausted.
Come up with what was different about most of them, and I'm just wondering if you think are labels good until they restrict? I don't know. I mean, I don't. You figure out who you are, but then you work really well to include everyone. I mean, it's sort of like, and I'm not, like a lot of times folks who work for nonprofits or work for like breast cancer, it's like, well, what happens when you cure cancer? And then people don't know what to do. But what happens when the labels are included? I mean, are we working towards not having a label, or
think
just
that's a
accepting,
really valid question,
or just accepting the label or the definition? Because I am way at the top of the pyramid. I mean, Western European, white, it's cisgender, all of these words. And so I look at a lot of this and I'm just not sure how I'm supposed to,
I think it's really hard to see the importance and the usefulness, or not even the usefulness, but the nuances of labels when they don't apply to you. Yeah. Because I was just writing a book, a blog, about asexuality. And as I was hearing from all these people about the different labels for asexuality and the different nuances, I'm thinking, I don't understand how this is different from this, or how this is part of the asexual community. But at the same time, it's not applied to me. So it's going to be different when I look at this and when I analyze this than if it was, for instance, something queer. I can look at something queer and say, oh, okay, I see the nuances here. And a good example is, in fact, the word queer and lesbian and gay. For a long time, I struggled with what to identify myself as, because I thought, well, what if at one point I do like a guy? Does that make me bi? Does that make me straight? What does that make me? And it's really kind of a personal journey, and labels are kind of a tool that you use on that personal journey to figure out where you fit in the world, really.
Well, I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, labels are a tool.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I'm like, it was just fascinating, because it's been 2 weeks now, and the article here, and I just could not. She's reading, and I'm like, I can't. My brain just could not wrap myself around it. But obviously, there was something in the descriptions that meant something to someone, and I'm willing to, but that's that's fascinating. I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. But it's just fascinating that I was flummoxed.
I think the other question we had is, and we talked about it when this list came up, and I admit I was not being as understanding as I should, but the idea that people with different, say, sexuality or even asexuality want to not be included in the norm, but then if giving themselves labels, if they're painting themselves into their own box, and if that can have kind of negative connotations, or if it's all just a way of maybe, like you've been saying, finding a community, perhaps.
I think it's kind of a tricky situation, because labels can certainly be restricting, and they can certainly be isolating, but they also evolve. As your identity shifts, your label shifts, and you find yourself in different spots in the community and interacting with the community in different ways. And that's another part of the equation, is community. Labels do identify communities, and part of the source of tension, I think, is finding labels that make everybody happy. And that's a challenge that's just never really going to have a full solution.
So you keep making more labels.
Exactly. Right. Your acronym gets longer and longer.
Well, I was really, my eyebrows raised, and granted, I may be behind on the evolve, how some of these things have evolved, that you identify as queer, because there was a period of time where that was not a nice thing to say, especially if you are heterosexual. Like, and there's those of us who are heterosexual but are very, open to whatever's going on. The last thing we ever want to do, and we freak out about it in this room all the time, is say the wrong thing, not meaning to. You know what I mean? So can you explain how you're using queer?
Yeah, so queer to me just means outside of that very traditional heterosexual ideal. And I kind of grimace a little bit when I call it an ideal, but I think it still very much is, unfortunately, in our society. So queer for me is a way to identify that I'm definitely not heterosexual, but I also don't really want to ascribe myself to a restricting label like lesbian or gay, because I do think, anything's possible. Everything's changing all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. It seems to be an inclusive word.
It is, yeah, a little bit more so.
Room for evolution and growth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it's a word that requires explanation, which I really like. Okay. I don't think it should be as easy as saying, I'm this. Well, what does that mean? A lot of people don't know what that means. And for me, queer is a way to start a conversation instead of just planning an identifier.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are getting more comfortable just asking. But for a long time, you didn't know if that was going to be offensive, right?
And I think that's a problem with this, too, is that so many people are so afraid of saying the wrong thing and being shamed. And I think we kind of need to move away from shame culture. People are going to say the wrong thing because things are always changing. And when you say the wrong thing, that's an opportunity to learn instead of being shamed, I think.
Or to not be, be defensive.
Right.
Is going through there, because a lot of folks will say, this is how I perceive something, and if someone else, learn from it versus being immediately offended that you were called out on something that doesn't work for the other person. I'm like, okay, so what terminology would you use, or how did I do that wrong, or can you explain what I was missing?
Yeah.
Versus immediately going into, there's nothing wrong with what I said.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think people hopefully will be understanding if something that could be insulting or the wrong term is used out of ignorance as opposed to intolerance.
Right.
Like they just
context. Yeah.
Right. They don't understand that what they're saying is offensive, not that they are actually trying to be
Right.
offensive.
Context is everything, and it just doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that, because God knows I've stepped in it enough times in my life. Bree, Lopez, Donovan, we're out of time, unfortunately, today. But can we get a commitment for you to from you to come back?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh!
I'd love to.
Oh, this is super fun, and I can't believe you're the tender age of 24. So I'm going to label you as an age, but you are just so wise and very, very talented blogger. And Miss Megan, you'll put up a link so that people can find. Check out
definitely.
Overcaffeinated.
Thank you for finding it.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm
very
gonna run. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great social commentary. Colleen Bertino and Megan Vaughn, have a great week, and we'll all at the Great Northern Sexcast. Next week is a regular show, but the following week is our special show with erotic photographers and swingers, Rice and Beans.
Yeah, because I'm going to be busy doing turkey stuff.
Dokey. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Yep.